This is the Constructionist Podcast, where we take ancient stories, the person of Jesus, current events and topics, and help you construct a new Christian worldview that's relevant and loving to those around you. I'm your host, Kevin Bates. I'm a semiotician and community builder looking at the signs of the times to build a better future together. You are tuned into the Constructionist Podcast, and tonight we are continuing a short mini-series on other people's holidays. So at the Constructionists, we encourage a worldview that is built on the principles of Christ. And in this episode, we're concluding our series on other people's holidays with the Vedic holidays. We started with Jewish holidays, then continue with Islamic holidays, and now tonight, the Vedics. So we desire to do this through a clear and honest lens. Next week, we are starting a 6-week series on ruining the Bible as we talk about old stories of the Old Testament and a few of the New, and we give some new perspectives that may go against what you have learned on your flannel graphs in Sunday school. So by doing so, we hope to offer insights and perspectives that will help you in your own journey towards a greater understanding, love, and compassion for yourself and others. So we want to assure you that in tonight's episode, we're not fabricating anything. We are giving information and ideas. We're going to point you to some more information. And if we guess, we're going to tell you we're guessing. Our goal is to provide an honest and authentic perspective on our examination of tonight, other people's holidays. So this is our thinking space, where we're presenting thoughts, and tonight we are making our best attempt to explain very practical thoughts to live by. So if you enjoy the Constructionist Podcast and want to support us financially, please follow the link in the chat or the show notes on the social media platform that you're listening to, and visit our Give page. So your support will enable us to continue producing high-quality content like this. But even more importantly, we want to hear from you, we want to engage with you, and we believe that through our interactions and discussions with listeners like you, we can continue to learn, we can continue to grow together. And we value your feedback, your questions, and your ideas. So send us a direct message, send us an email. We're excited to build a community around our shared exploration and build a communal hermeneutic. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know what you think. So tonight, Sharia, thanks for joining us. Jake, thanks for joining us. What we're going to do first is we are going to do a little bit of a recap. And that recap is just to get us caught up. If you missed the last couple of podcasts, we talked about Jewish holidays, we talked about Islamic holidays, but now we're going to move out of a very specific religious group, the Abrahamic monotheists, and we're going to move into a different category of religion, well, called or birthed out of the ancient Vedic religion, the historical Vedic religion. And so those are the Hindus and the Buddhists. Traditionally, that's what we're going to cover, just those two tonight. So Sharia, why don't you start with our recap? What do Jews celebrate? And Jake, you're going to continue with what do Muslims celebrate? We want to know about other people's holidays.
Okay, so there are 6 major Jewish holidays. There's a couple of minor holidays too, but we didn't talk about those a couple weeks ago, and I'm not going to do that tonight either. The first one that we looked at was the winter holiday. This is Hanukkah, or the Festival of Lights, which commemorates the revolution led by Judah the Maccabee to drive the Greeks out of Israel and to reclaim the temple. There was a miracle with the olive oil for the lights in the temple lasting 8 days when there was only a single day supply. And so this holiday celebrates that miracle of light. There's also the Festival of Purim in the spring, and this celebrates the story of Esther, the salvation of the Jewish people from Haman's plot through the actions of Mordecai and Esther. We also have the Passover Seder Festival, which celebrates the Exodus story. It's a story of liberation and a celebration of finding ourselves in that story of liberation so that others are able to be liberated as well. The next one is Rosh Hashanah. This is Jewish New Year. It's one of the high holidays celebrated by the blowing of the shofar in the morning, candle lighting, and feasts on challah bread and other sweet foods.
I
10
I
days
want to blow
after the
that shofar. They actually get out with a horn
a
and
ram's horn.
they, yeah, ram's horn, and they, yeah, wow. Want to do that one day.
So 10 days later is Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. This is the holiest holiday in the Jewish calendar. It involves a fast as a self denial. It remembers when Moses descended the mountain after the golden calf incident. So, pleading with God, and Israel's sins are forgiven. Historically, the priest would offer incense in the Holy of Holies on this day. Um, and then 5 days after that is the Festival of Sukkot, or the Festival of Booths, which commemorates the journey from Egypt to the Promised Land.
Nice. Now, what I wonder a little bit about Jewish holidays is, are most of the holidays about liberation, or many of them, like, is that focused on liberation?
I don't think I know enough to answer that for certain, but
Okay.
I do think you could argue that based on the stories that are being remembered.
Mm-hmm. And the two main ones definitely are.
You mean
Right.
Passover and Yom
Right.
Kippur?
Passover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even
But
Hanukkah
even
as
like
well.
what did you say?
Even Hanukkah as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Shreya. That just kind of gets us caught up to the first Abrahamic faith. Now know that Christianity, uh, or Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, historically in that order, are considered the Abrahamic faiths, the religions that come from Abraham as the father of many nations in the Old Testament, in the Torah. So that's the, I guess, the lineage, you could say, of religions in the Abrahamic. Now they're considered monotheists. Monotheism is and encompasses many other religions as well. So we focus on the Abrahamic, and of course, other people's holidays is going to be other people besides like Christian. Um, we're focused on their holidays, so very specifically the Abrahamic. But just know that like Baha'i and Zoroastrianism, and there's different monotheistic religions out there that would be under the same umbrella category as Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. But we just took the two, probably the mega religions that people think monotheist. When they think monotheist, they think the three mega religions. Um, just like in the Vedics, we think Buddhism and Hinduism, are the mega dominant religions in that category as well. All right, Jake, let's talk about just a little bit of recap on Islam, the Muslims. What do they celebrate?
The two main holidays, one is the breaking of the fast of Ramadan, which is Eid al-Fitr, and that's just a massive party. And then the other one is the Feast of Sacrifice, commemorating the when Abraham actually went to sacrifice either Isaac or Ishmael, and God provided a ram instead. And so you cut the ram into three parts, or the bull, or whatever you're going to use, and you have one part for yourself, one part for your friends, and one part for the poor. And so the goal is that everyone eats, everyone is full, because everyone received the blessing of the sacrifice. And so that's Eid al-Hada.
Okay. Eid al-Hada is the sacrifice, and Eid al-Fitr is the breaking of the fast. Something very important that we talked about last week that I really really love is the date and the almond. And the date and the almond in all three Abrahamic religions carry a significance of holiness. And since we're coming up on the Thanksgiving season, I think that for us to around our tables, and almonds bring significance to the glory of God, to the sacredity, or the precious fruit of God. Maybe just signify it in your own tradition of like the spirit. There's definitely some significant celebration around the date and the almond. The almond being the first fruit or the first blossom of the season. And I just said Thanksgiving. I meant Christmas. So as we advance forward to Christmas, or whatever holiday that you celebrate, whether it be winter solstice, Christmas, or you have a continued Thanksgiving, that you are bringing in family all throughout this season, that dates would be present. And then could be some significance pointed to those, and a little bit of honoring to all three of the Abrahamic faiths, and to be able to talk about that. And if you want to go back to that episode, that's episode 2 of Other People's Holidays, where we talk about the date and the almond during these Eid al-Fitr, and also some of the Jewish holidays as well. Dates are present. So just a little foodie thing, if we wanted to.
All the foodie things.
All the foodie things, right. Okay, thanks you two for that. I mean, this just gives us a little bit of recap as we move into a different category, and I'm going to explain this different category. It's going to be a little bit of an education, but that you can just look up on your own to just do the deep dive as you're sitting there and you can't sleep one night. You can doom scroll Wikipedia or some web pages and look at the Vedic religions. The Vedic religions are considered traditionally, those are like the mega religions would be Hinduism and Buddhism, and the Vedic religion actually was a religion in and of itself. And it's a historic Vedic religion, or Vedism. It would be considered ancient Hinduism, would be considered an ancient Indian type religion. It was practiced in northern India, in that subcontinent, and so in the northwest of the continent. So there's a period of time as well. So you have the historic Vedic religion, Vedism, it would be called, but then you have a Vedic period, and this, just like we have different periods that we signify, or different eras. So right around 1500 before Common Era, that's what we're talking about. This ancient Vedic religion then forms and shapes some of the major traditions in, well, all the way to modern day Hinduism. So basically, Hinduism is different than historic Vedism, or the Vedic religion, of course, but there's a lot of, I guess, development out of that era and out of that time. So with just that, and let's just camp on that. That's the era that we're talking about. That's the time frame that we're talking about. And I want to first start with Hinduism. And Hinduism, of course, I don't know if this would make Buddhist people mad, but Buddhism is said to come out of Hinduism. I know that some Buddhists and some of my Buddhist friends traditional Buddhists would take offense to that, because they believe that Gautama was the only manifestation of basically a Brahma. But basically, Hindus have a trinity as well. And that trinity is Brahma. And Brahma is considered the creator. The creator is, like, if you look at a trinity of Hinduism, the creator is in the center, and that creator usually is the largest figure in that trinity. But Brahma is considered, like, let's say, the father of the religion, let's just say. Vishnu is the preserver. And so Vishnu is another figure in the in the Trinity, and Shiva or Shiva, some people pronounce it, would be the destroyer. So you have the creator, you have the preserver, and you have the destroyer. And basically all the power of the universe and all creation of the universe and all the power of people comes from this Trinity. Now, you have different manifestations of then the Trinity, or specifically of Vishnu. And these manifestations are the different forms or the gods of Hinduism that people focus on. So let me pull up this one note page really quick. The manifestations basically are like what could be considered as, like, could you say an avatar? So it would be the avatar of the original, or the local divine hero. So in Hinduism, you can adopt a avatar, or you can adopt this manifestation of Vishnu. Um, the most common manifestations of Vishnu or avatar would be like Krishna. You hire Krishnas, where you go to Berkeley campus, and right at the gates you see, or used to see, people dressed in very light colored garments, and they would have different chimes or different bells and such in their hands, and that was the celebration of Krishna, which is one of the manifestations of Vishnu. Let me look up one thing in my notes here. So when it says that, or when people say that Buddha is a manifestation of Vishnu, it's the ninth avatar of Vishnu. But the correct language, I guess, is that the Buddha is adopted in. And so that's the language that they use, is Buddha is adopted in. And there's certain people that would say that that is the final manifestation, like Buddha carried forward this new type of religion, but the Buddha is basically adopted in as the ninth. And can you say avatar? I would say avatar, the avatar of Vishnu. So you literally have many avatars or manifestations of Vishnu. And then each manifestation of Vishnu kind of has their own celebration. They have their own type of holiday that they celebrate. But Indian people from India, the subcontinent, they definitely celebrate one holiday that I want to that I find is absolutely beautiful and amazing, and that is Holi. And Hindus practice or celebrate Holi. It's very popular. It's actually in the United States. If you go to some of the weird places like Portland, you'll find all kinds of celebrations here, because we celebrate a lot of diversity in some of these larger towns. You'll find Holi celebrations in Seattle and San Francisco, in LA, and it's celebrated as the Festival of Colors. That's what people know it as, but it's also love and spring. And so the festival is not just about throwing color, like colored chalk all over the place. Um, but it's about love, and it celebrates the divine love of Radha and Krishna. And so those two manifestations, those two deities, are celebrated specifically in the celebration of Holi. It's specifically, and this is something that I learned a couple of years ago, that Holi is truly at its virtue level. Holi is the celebration of good over evil, that good wins, that there's victory that Vishnu has um, over evil. And I find that quite beautiful that every year they celebrate by just basically throwing color, right, as a form of beauty, throw color that good is triumphant over evil. I kind of wish that Christians would do that. It makes me sad that we don't celebrate that Jesus has victory over evil. It's kind of sad that we don't celebrate that fact. We celebrate the concept, like maybe that's what Easter is to some people, um, or maybe that's what their baptism is to some people. But we don't necessarily celebrate the virtue of goodness over evil that isn't like in a sacred tradition or anything like that. So before we get into the description of it, do you guys have any questions yet about holly?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet.
Not yet. No, we're good.
Okay, I just saw movements, and so I thought maybe you had something to input or something like that. Um, so so holly is sacred. It's a sacred thing. It's not something that is considered like not religious. It is 100% religious. It's 100% sacred. It is celebrated all over the world, particularly, I mean, some of the biggest, of course, celebrations are going to be in India, but it's a celebration of Hindus and non-Hindus alike. So non-Hindus can join in, and I think that that's really kind of a fun opportunity that we have as just people to gather together with other people and celebrate good over evil. I think that that's kind of cool. But they banter with one another with words. They have fun with one another. They sing. They dance a lot. And it's observed by throwing literally color on each other. Now, traditionally, it's not the powder. I find this interesting. It used to be colored water. So if you can imagine color and water, what that like it would just be everywhere at that point. But in Portland, it's a matter of hours before color and water mix with the rain. But it's celebrated with you've seen it maybe with colored dust or chalk that's thrown, but
Hmm.
traditionally it's right at the end of it's the end of winter that it's done, and it's celebrated with color of some kind and very bright colors. The bright colors are like the oranges, which are very sacred colors in the
Hmm.
Vedic faith. So color is not just, hey, that's a cool color. The colors are very
There's meaning behind
sacred.
color.
Say again.
There's meaning behind color.
Very meaning. So when red is thrown, that definitely means something. The color is identified with agriculture and spring and harvest and fertility and relationships and the end of conflict and ridding people from emotional, like the Dalai Lama talks about the negative emotions. So color is thrown to show the ridding of the emotional impurities from our past. And so we celebrate
Hmm.
goodness, all these specific goodness, whether it be like a harvest or whether it be an emotional freedom that we're experiencing. Color is very symbolic, I would say. Um, but right before Holly, they light bonfires, and people gather near the bonfires and they sing and dance.
Hmm.
They sing and dance, and they sing and dance hard. And then the next day, Holly is then celebrated. So they actually celebrate before the celebration. So what does that show me about this holiday is they're partying before because they know what's coming, but what is coming to them is more than just celebration. It actually has a tremendous amount of very emotional meaning
Hmm.
for them. So they come up with powdered solutions or powder, a dry colored like smear powder, and they literally smear it all over their faces. They smear it all over their bodies, uh, and they celebrate,
Mm-hmm.
good over evil. They do drink, they do eat. They have very specific foods and delicacies that they eat and they drink. Many of them I can't even pronounce what they are, but there's a lot of very specific foods that are shared during Holi. And then afterwards, and this, I guess this would be done in the Ganges maybe region or different, but they bathe and they actually have clean clothes and people bring them clean clothes, and then they visit for the rest of the day with their family and friends. And so that is Holly. I think that's quite it's quite beautiful. The metaphor, the meaning, the emotionality of it, and the actual act of it is very symbolic and very
Mm.
very neat. So that's Holly, and that's the Hindu religion that I have to share specifically before we get into Buddhism.
It's lovely.
Any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's every major religion has a spring holiday, kind of the coming out
Hmm.
of death
Yeah.
into life, the overcoming of evil into freedom. For Christianity, that's Easter, and so it just makes sense that their their power over evil, power over death, is at the
Yeah.
same time period that we celebrate Easter.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because the very seasons are moving from darkness to light, and
Mm-hmm.
new life is sprouting. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is that season of harvest. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Winter's over, type of thing. Spring is upon us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's move into the Buddhist holidays. And I have pretty much researched that there's about five significant Buddhist holidays
Mm.
that are that are big. Uh, First of all, let me ask first: is my internet, is everything okay tech wise
Mm-hmm.
from your end?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. I just want to make sure because I'm lagging, but that doesn't mean that I'm lagging to you. So I just want to make sure there. All right. So the first one, of course, is the Buddhist New Year. And let me just pick out one specific New Year celebration is the Thai New Year,
Mm.
which is a national holiday. But the Thai New Year, since my children are from Thailand, I just want to focus on that for a moment, that it's called Songkran. And Songkran is the Thai New Year national holiday, and it's celebrated in April. And the period of time during that time is there's a lot of astrological ideas behind it that have been mapped and such. But it keeps with the Buddhist calendar and the Hindu calendar, and the New Year takes place around the same time in South and Southeast Asia. There's the giving of gifts. There's a lot of like celebration every day, really with Buddhists, with the monks and such. But Songkran, actually the meaning of it is movement, and that movement from one position to the other, so moving from previous year to current year. That's what Songkran means. And so that holiday is a transitional new year, and the tradition behind it is very symbolic. They At the end they send up um, lamps or lanterns into the sky. I mean, it's just unbelievable to watch some of the things that go on during Songkran. But they make food. They offer food to one another. They offer food to the monks, and they offer special foods to the Buddha. They offer water to the monks. They offer water to each other, and they actually splash each other with water. And this is what I find interesting. Is they wash away. They represent basically the washing of water represents taking away somebody's sin or their bad luck.
Hmm.
So I find that quite cool. When they
Same.
wash with water, it's kind of like a festival of washing. So that's the water festival, where the streets of Bangkok and such are closed. You literally are there for Songkran. They get into water fights. They have arenas with water fights. I mean, it's quite cool to watch, but to watch, and it's actually very symbolic what they do, and it has some roots in, water is purifying, and then that
Mm.
metaphor, I see just some crossovers. I'm just kind of just playing there a little bit with crossovers into our tradition, but the splashing of water on each other, and if you could imagine, right, just hosing down a grandma. I mean, like young people literally like hose down the elderly, and the elderly just hose down the young people.
Mm.
They just splash on everybody, and it's very traditional, and it's very old, and it's I've only seen it and witnessed like the raising of lanterns and such during Songkran in Thailand. It is celebrated similarly in other places. So,
Mm.
but the Buddhist New Year for the Theravedas
Which is Thai.
is celebrated, which is Thai, yeah, celebrated the full moon in April, the first full moon. And in the Theravada tradition, they party hard, really hard. And so full moon parties are just like unbelievable in Southeast Asia. So the idea of that movement from old year to new year, they celebrate that really, and lots of like with uh, with food. They celebrate it with drink, but they also celebrate it like with the water. Like Songkran they get into water fights. In the Buddhist New Year, they purify, and they purify their homes. They purify, um, their temples that they have in their homes. They purify, and then they light the lanterns in the and like on Songkran, and they lift up, those float in the air. But any lantern that's lit in Buddhist culture is for good luck.
Mm.
So whether they light candles or whether they light a lantern, that is for good luck. I participated in Buddhist New Year's before. Of course, I've had Asian friends, Buddhist friends for a long time that celebrate it very traditionally. I mean, I've sat at a table with a full blown goose just sitting there on a table for Chinese New Year.
Was it cooked?
One year I had what?
Was it cooked?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was cooked. It was cooked. I have sat at a table with like a humongous mound of crab for the Buddhist New Year. I've sat at tables that like the food is just, it's just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And the next holiday for the Buddhists is actually the most important, which is the first full moon in May. So that, of course, they work off of full moons. They work off of the celestial um, beings, and so the Vesak, or the Buddha day, or the Buddha's birthday, is said, or the Buddha day, the Vesak, is Buddha's birth, enlightenment. It celebrates Buddha and the basically the enlightenment through the eightfold path. Um, I used to, yeah, it's sitting up there. I can go grab it really quick. This is a sandstone figure of a Buddhist wheel. This is the Buddha wheel. And this is representation of the eightfold path. And so that's the Dharma. That's the practice of Buddhism, symbolized. This is just a symbol, symbolized in that sandstone. Uh, but the eightfold path, when you reach the eightfold, you attain enlightenment, and then Buddha underneath the Bodhi tree, uh, it, gathering enlightenment, that pride or the lack of humility is the birth of all suffering. And so, what is given during Buddha's birthday are an immense amount of flowers. I mean, you will see flowers given every day in Buddhist temples, but on Buddha's birthday, they decorate, and in the Thai temple, the main temple in Thailand, it is adorned with flowers, and around the jade Buddha, they put just this humongous
Wreath.
flower wreath around. Yeah. The fourfold assembly day. This is not necessarily a specific like Buddha Day. This is actually where a day where 1,200 monks showed up basically at the temple where Buddha was staying. They showed up at the same time. And they call this a miraculous Buddha Day, where these monks, the actual movement from the monks, um, they called them the fourfold assembly. And so those that are the monks, those that followed the Buddha, those that came to visit the Buddha, all at the same time. That's the fourfold miracle. And so those that are important, like the temple workers, the monks, and those people are celebrated during that day. Then the next one is Dharma Day. Dharma is a full moon in July, and it commemorates basically Buddha's first sermon, the beginning of the teaching. So we have the Dharma is the turning, excuse me, the celebration is the turning of this wheel. So these are big in the temples. They turn this wheel in front of the followers, and that is the Dharma Day, the first Buddha sermon. I find that just interesting because I don't remember the first sermon I preached, and no one celebrates my first sermon. And I don't want anyone ever to reflect back on my first sermon because it was probably horrific.
What did I
The
say?
Pavarana, which is the next Buddha holiday, the Pavarana, which is a ceremony. It's a ceremony day, and this is Buddha's Lent. So this is a Buddhist Lent time, where basically monks and nuns leave the temple and go to retreats where they take vows of silence and solitary. And I actually participated in one of these once, where I went to a Buddhist monastery where the monks had left their temples and had come up to these retreats, and they were taking these vows of silence and solitude. So this is a time that the leaders, they go through this ceremony type time. If you go to some of the if you go to some of the local or uh, U.S. temples, people will make, you call them hajjas in Islam, but they make journeys, pilgrimages. You
Mhm.
actually would say that for maybe Jews or Christians. They make pilgrimages to these retreat centers. During Pavarana, or during just some of these celebrations, but especially Pavarana. And I think that Jake and I both have seen some of this in Laos, that that every day monks go out on the streets at like really early in the morning, 6 a.m., and then 6 at night, and they hold out bowls in front, and they're called begging bowls. I actually have two of them in my living room, but they're called begging bowls. And people come and they in these begging bowls. Well, during these ceremonies, during Pavarana, those gifts become like big. So that's the time where you give the Buddhist monk, the followers will gift them clothing, the followers will gift them things like a cell phone. They'll give them a cell phone to be able to communicate. They'll give them new bedding, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. And so when they come back from these retreats, that's when these extravagant, not really extravagant gifts, but bedding and a cell phone is not necessarily extravagant, but maybe extravagant for someone that's in solitude and in silence. Um, but the Buddhist will welcome them back to the temple with new things and special gifts, and fill their bowls. They'll fill these begging bowls with money, and so alms are given to Buddhist monks. But this is a time during Pavarana how it's globalized, because not every Buddhist has a Buddhist monk living next door, so they'll just give money towards charity during Pavarana. So those are the five Buddhist holidays that I thought were really important, and the one um, Hindu holiday that literally almost anyone can participate in many cities around the United States. You can participate in, and then Songkran is the Thai New Year, which is the national holiday. So I would say that with those, that does not even cover a fraction of, of the holidays, because I think probably the Vedics, the Hindus and the Buddhists, they celebrate a lot, and they celebrate in little ways and in big ways. um, but their religion, I would say, is is a daily practice, just like a Islamic follower, a Muslim follower would pray
Hold the
5
hours.
times a day and have a mat every day. A
Mm-hmm.
Hindu person or a Buddhist person is much the same, especially in traditional countries. They go to the temple every day. They walk by monks and by little temples, and they give money and they give things on a very regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a, hey, we showed up on Sunday. It is a 7 day a week type event for some of these people. So their celebrations are very integrated in their lunar months, and just every month is just something new. Kind of reminds me of the Catholics with saints and how they emphasize a different saint every month. I would say that this is very similar, as they're either celebrating the tradition, the culture, or or a manifestation avatar of Vishnu.
It's great. Thank you.
That was a lot.
It's a lot there. I'm trying to
Does
think.
anyone have any thoughts or additions to that?
I don't think whenever I was in Buddhist countries that I saw many holidays um, beyond like the traditional just begging times of monks, and but a lot
Mm.
of a lot of their festivals I believe are in spring and late fall. If I
Well, some of them are November, December too.
Yeah,
So,
and so their growing season is a little different. So their harvest is at a different time than what we would traditionally like for our own harvest. Um,
mhm.
but if you were ever to travel Asian countries, Buddhist countries, I think what I have taken away the most is the generosity that they have. And so a lot of their holidays are focused around giving and generosity.
Mm.
Um, because that's who they are.
Yeah. They also give a lot of gifts. And like in Korea, you have when you go and visit somebody in a home, and really all over Asia, right?
Mhm.
Specifically, you wrap a gift. I think it's in blue and gold, if I'm not mistaken. I know blue is in there. You actually wrap the gift in a certain color to show honor. And it can't be expensive either, especially in Korea.
Yeah,
If it's expensive, then that shows that
it's
that
shame.
person has to match that gift. You know, it's like, I can't match this gift. If you gave me chocolate, then I can match chocolate, but I can't match the gift. So it's very interesting that in that exchange of gifts, even coming over to the house, if you're invited to somebody's home in Asia, number one, you take off your shoes, and this for overall cleanliness, right? Um,
Which
but
makes
then
sense.
always bring a gift. And that's one thing that I learned in with my children's foster families, ends with all of her workers and all the people that were around her during their adoptions, both of them, that you just gave gifts. That's what you do. So Chinese New Year, they actually take gifts. It's a 15-day celebration. Chinese New Year is like long. It's not just this, hey, one day we got smashed and, and brought in the New York New Year or whatever at 9 o'clock, but it is 15 full days. And for those 15 days, they wrap gifts and like special
It's
wrapping
like
and all
it's
these
like
things.
Christianity's traditional Christmas tide.
Mm.
Right, right, yeah. And some people travel, like some Asian cultures actually travel, make those journeys to other maybe homeland countries and such to celebrate. And so these celebrations are not small at all.
No.
And they're traditionally um they're traditionally steeped in with food and with all kinds of things. In our research, did anyone find anything about Native American celebrations? Was there any Native American holidays that did we look at that at all? Did I
Uh,
just jump down a rabbit hole that we
you,
didn't
you
do?
you jumped a rabbit hole that we did
Yeah.
Okay,
not.
all
We
right,
did.
all right.
I think one that
We,
we went down to
what'd you say?
Yule.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
looked that up. Um,
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
What's Yule, Shreya?
What
Other
is
people's
Yule?
holidays.
Because we sing that during
okay.
Christmas. Isn't there something about Yule and Christmas time?
Yeah, Yuletide. Um, so Yule is considered a pagan holiday, um, although it's also been adopted by Wiccans, which are sometimes pagan and sometimes not.
Right.
Um, but it comes from mostly Northern Europe and Germanic peoples, so
Mm-hmm.
very European. Yule celebrates the winter solstice, which is the longest night and the shortest day. So it's symbolic of beginnings, rebirth, rest, and gratitude, looking forward to brighter days and the triumph of light over darkness. So
Mm-hmm.
similar to Holly in that way. Um, Religiously, it celebrates the divine birth. So as part of the wheel of the year in pagan holidays, there's a god who dies on Samhain, which is what we call Halloween, and is then reborn by the goddess on Yule. And this god's power grows as
Say
the days
Halloween
get
again.
longer.
I've
Samhain
I've heard Samhain.
is what it looks like when it's spelled, yeah, but it's like an Irish word and it's pronounced Samhain.
Samhain. Okay.
So some of the ways Yule is celebrated is with a Yule log, and this log is decorated with evergreen boughs, with candles, with pine cones, berries, and gifts that people wanted to receive from the gods, or something that is representative of what you wanted to receive. So the
Mm-hmm.
log's brought into the home for a few weeks leading up to the solstice, and then on the solstice, part of the log is burned, And this is done every night for 12 nights until the log is entirely consumed. So that's also similar to our 12 days of Christmas.
Mm,
So the caramel and the nuts around the caramel log,
yeah. It's
the
a Yule log.
Christmas log.
Yeah.
Is
Mm-hmm.
this what we're talking about? The Yule log?
Yeah.
Basically, we
I think that's,
appropriated that into our
yes.
Christmas candy.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think even
Interesting.
even Yule we've completely appropriated into Christianity.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Decorating with evergreen boughs because they're evergreen. They celebrate rebirth and renewal. Um, Making gingerbread or making wassail, which is a mulled cider.
Right. Right.
It's a
Yeah.
toast to good health. It was common to pass around the same cup as well as to pour some out to the earth. And then it's just considered a time of reflection. So, it being the longest night of the year, that's an invitation to turn inward, to reflect on the year, the lessons learned, and to set goals or intentions.
Did you just say that the green boughs
Mm-hmm.
that we hang
Mm-hmm.
during Christmas time, that's a Yule thing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mistletoe is a Yule thing.
Shut the
Mm-hmm.
door. Come
Yep.
on. You just wrecked my
Gingerbread,
Christmas.
cider.
You're
Yeah.
wrecking my Christmas.
Yes.
So
Basically
cider,
everything.
hot cider, wassail. What else did you just say?
Making gingerbread. And
I'll
I
never
don't.
eat gingerbread the same. I always thought I thought those snowmen gingerbread. Oh man,
And I
gingerbread
believe,
cookies. Then
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even our Christmas tree comes out of
Yep.
Yule.
this is a lesson for me again. Now that you just wrecked my Christmas,
Wrecked it.
just wrecked it. And we're gonna wreck the Bible here coming up next week. But now that you wrecked my Christmas with taking away my boughs and gingerbread. It just goes to show that appropriating other people's things just shows me that we don't really many times give honor to other people's things. We just take
Mhm.
other people's things because maybe we
Mm-hmm.
don't have our thing versus just giving honor or participating alongside that person's things. I think that's the important lesson that I've learned in other people's holidays is
Let them have your thing.
let them have their thing.
Or join in where you can.
Just because you don't have a thing doesn't mean you got to go take somebody else's thing or adopt it into yours and call it your own. This is why it's really important, I think, when we look at other people's holidays, that we just give honor to them, we participate, we learn from them, we eat their food, we give them gifts as they give us gifts, we participate in what they want us to participate
Mhm.
in, eat more of the food, drink more of the drink. And when they allow, like Holly, they say that's for Hindus and non-Hindus alike. So welcome all people. It's a unity thing. And so participating in ways that you're invited in. Um, we do have in the United States some heritage months, and I know that these are not necessarily holidays, but they are heritage months where we give honor to people groups. And I think that it's very important to participate or to celebrate alongside um, the different people groups that are being celebrated. So whether it be a Native American Heritage Month, or whether it be Latino Hispanic Heritage Month, or whether it be Black History Heritage Month, we look at those times in our calendars and we participate, show up, and celebrate alongside the diverse people that are all around us. And if a holiday comes and we can participate or allowed to participate, we can come alongside those things as well, which is really important. Whether we be invited into a Passover, whether we invited into the Festival of Booths, and to have dinner, whether we get invited into Eid al-Fitr and have the breaking of Ramadan, the fast, and we are allowed into that celebration. I don't know too many people that would celebrate Yule, the Yule groups, besides,
We celebrate Yule.
well, I mean, in
Yeah,
its
well,
in its
and the
in
tricky
its
thing is you
purest
blend in.
form. What?
If you do celebrate Yule, you blend in.
Well, I know, but like like to actually sit with somebody that I do know somebody down in Southern Oregon now that celebrated. Actually, I do know somebody that celebrates uh
Yule.
winter solstice and Yule, and they get into that because they're not Christian and they celebrate that. Although they're probably, I don't know if they're from that background or whatever, but but they do celebrate that. Maybe I can ask her to invite me down, my family down for the Yule log ceremony. But anyway, I just think that it's really important to give an acknowledgement and to pay attention. This has just been a lesson for me to pay attention to what is happening around us, because not everybody is at Christmas time on the 25th of December celebrating a traditional Christmas time. They might
Hmm.
celebrate Christmas and have people over and have a dinner, but they're not celebrating for the same reasons. They have other holidays that they celebrate, and to pay attention to what they celebrate and participate in those as well. All right. Any other thoughts?
I think we're good. Thank you. That was a fun little
Okay.
session we had.
Thanks, both of you, for this mini series. I learned a lot with Jewish holidays, Islamic holidays, and Vedic holidays, and I hope that everyone did too. And next week, we are ruining the Bible with walking through the Old Testament and a few New Testament books. And we're looking at different perspectives that are different than your flannel graph Sunday school version of the Bible, which could feel threatening, which could feel like, maybe somebody's moving your cheese when it comes to the Bible. And so we're going to walk through those, but I hope and I think that we are mature enough to look at different perspectives of the Bible, and we're going to make it, even if we get a little disillusioned about maybe David or Revelation. So I think that we can make it through that series. That's going to be for 6 weeks. That's going to take us into the middle of January, and then we'll continue on Thursday nights with this podcast. All right, Sharia, Jacob, thank you for joining us. And with that, good night, everybody.